Now, what about this for some of the rubbish that is being floated by absolute lunatics on the left? I know that I should have a trigger warning when we're going to show you the Greens leader, but the Greens leader believes that it is, the far right, the Murdoch media and the business lobby that is starting to win out over the obvious health concerns. This is bullshit. Look at this.
What worries me now is that the clamour is growing from sections of the billionaire business community to say we've got to start lifting those restrictions so that they can start making money again, even if the health advice doesn't recommend that.
They can start making money again. What about the hundreds of thousands of people in the state that he represents, the city that he represents, who don't have a job? Nicholas Rees is with Melbourne City Council and does not associate himself with idiot ideas of the Greens. But this idea that there's some sort of false clamouring. You saw the opinion polls that I just served up. I understand the notes of caution, but what's your hope that comes out of tomorrow? Do you believe that even in a cautious state with a cautious leader that he has to tomorrow say in 2 weeks from today, this is what's going to happen? In 3 weeks from today, this is what's going to happen?
Look, I share your frustration, Paul, about Mother's Day. I get that you're upset. I'm upset too that I can't see my mum on Mother's Day either. We're all feeling that way, but we can't do these things in a haphazard way. It has to be done very carefully, very methodically, or as we heard the South Australian Premier saying earlier, we'll end up with this sawtooth approach where restrictions come on and off and everyone will get confused and it's not a proper pathway back for us. So even though we're frustrated, we need to do this in a systematic way. I very much hope that tomorrow we do get that roadmap, that framework that gives us a sense of over the weeks and months ahead how restrictions can be lifted. I'm not looking for every last little detail, but I just need to know what the road looks like so that I can manage my own expectations. We can all get a sense of what the journey in front of us looks like. We've been in it for long enough now. I think we're being very well behaved as a community and they can share a bit more with us about what that framework going forward looks like.
Now, not as a point of debating, but just as a point of discussion, Nicholas, how many people in Victoria do you think are currently in ICU units?
Look, I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
The answer is 6. How many do you think are currently in hospital?
Oh, there'd be many thousand.
8. That's literally where we are. And that's the point.
Oh, as a result of COVID-19?
COVID, yeah. And that's
Sorry,
that's
I thought you were talking about the entire hospital system.
Correct. Not saying it to be a smart-ass, but just the whole point is that if tomorrow Daniel Andrews comes out and says, look, I fully agree that we need to reopen, look, and over the weeks and months we'll slowly do that. Well, 8 people are in hospital, 6 are in ICU. Now, I know that the more people we reactivate means more cases. And I can see the tweets coming now. Oh, 6 is now 12. It's doubled, which means it'll double every 2 weeks. That's not going to happen. And as has been the case the whole way through, 97% of people who get coronavirus will have a mild exposure to it. The point is, Nick, we have done it. Right? We have done what other countries haven't been able to do. No one's going for eradication. If we're going to eradication, no one's leaving the house until 2021. But the point is that it's more than motherhood statements tomorrow. Would you not agree that timetables, not goals, are what must be clear tomorrow?
Yes, I do. But I need to pick you up on that point about outbreaks in Victoria. There are still cases of community transmission. We've had 62 cases come out of a Cedar Meats cluster. Just in the last couple of hours, there's a young boy from Marsland College, a well-known Catholic boys' school in Melbourne, connected with Cedar Meats. But
how many million people live in Victoria?
About 5 or 6.
Okay, so but this is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's this awful debate, and this is out of the wider panel, right? Where the difficulty is that, Bronwyn, we have to make a decision, right? And the decision is that yes, inevitably some will get the virus. Our hospital system is best cope in the world to be able to treat them and to deal with them to make sure that as many people don't die, but fear of 8 becoming 12 is not a good enough reason to say to 6 million people, you can't see your mother.
Paul, this is what happens when people take power, particularly socialists who take power, they never want to relinquish it. The bottom line is this. At the beginning, it was said that we wanted to flatten out the curve so that when people got sick, the hospital system could cope. We've gone way, way past that, and then the goalposts got moved. And they'll get moved again. It is time. The Prime Minister said he had two things he had to deal with, the health question, but the economy question. Now is the time for us to be looking at the economy. We've now got the well-known people in the mental health sphere coming out and saying you can expect suicides to start to really escalate dramatically. Now, when you're considering a life is important, and anything that brings about someone wanting to take their own life is just as important as someone who catches the disease and also dies. We really have to make sure that we now are looking after the well-being of the Australian people, and you don't do it by saying they've got to live in a police state. Of course, when people come out and start to mingle and get around, you're going to have a few more cases because nobody's been exposed for the time that we've been locked up. And it is been locked up. And I've just been amazed at how willing the Australian people have really been to take it. But I'm seeing the evidence of it myself in talking to people, on the phone I might add, but also when you go to somewhere where you are permitted to be, you hear the comments, you see more cars on the road, you can see that people are chafing at the bit to get going. And when you hear on Talkback Radio the plight of people who are just discounted by people like the Greens, who really want to oppress people all the time. And Nick, you don't like to associate with the Greens, you say, most of the time, but really, they are socialists just like you are. So you can't get away from...
Of the many gags we'll have about Nick, he ain't a Green.
Yeah, no, I'm not. And I'll say that the Greens are, mindless attacks on business all the time are almost as wacky as your mindless attacks on socialists. You're both out there in the wacky farm as far as I'm concerned.
No, Nikki, I know you're a socialist, and I've always said you're a really nice guy, and if you just gave it up, you'd be a fantastic contributor to the society.
So, Deb...
It can be done. Work at it.
So, Deb, welcome to the party. In Queensland, there are 3 people in intensive care. There are 8 people currently in hospital. The projected job losses by June is 290,000. That's why a cafe owner in Broadbeach or Townsville needs to know in 2 weeks' time you can open.
Yeah, look, exactly right. And if I can just say on the Greens comment, it's contributions like that, which is exactly why the Greens should remain a minor party. Or just shouldn't have a voice in the public debate, because it's all well and good to fire those shots from the sidelines because they'll never have to govern. But you're absolutely right. So businesses, for example, in Townsville, they haven't had a coronavirus case for, I think it's over 3 weeks. Mount Isa, west of Roma, and also west of Roma, like those places haven't had corona in Queensland at all. So I was speaking to some people up in Cairns today. They are absolutely bleeding up there. They rely on the tourism sector so much, as does the Gold Coast, as does so much of Queensland. So those businesses, the majority of the businesses that we're talking about are not the big businesses that I want to find another word for moron, but that person from the Greens said. What they are...
I've got one. It starts with a D, but it's probably not good for you if you're trying to get votes at the end of the year.
Good. Oh, that's true.
It's good.
Oh, thank you, bro. I'm an idiot. But look, and it is a stupid comment because the majority of businesses and what keeps our economy alive across Australia is our small business sector, and that is the sector that needs the support right now. That is the sector that they are the people that we are worried about, their livelihoods. We cannot afford to let this health crisis now become an economic crisis. And that's exactly what is happening. Here in Queensland, we had the highest unemployment rate in the nation before coronavirus. Before coronavirus, we had the lowest business confidence in the nation, and that's all thanks to the left-leaning Green government of Anastasia Palaszczuk and Jackie Trad. Now we've got the coronavirus, and we've got a Premier who refuses to make decisions because I do not believe that a one-size-fits-all approach works across any of the states. But here in Queensland in particular, where we've got massive areas of Queensland, like you imagine saying to people in Barcaldine, you cannot move for more than 50 kilometres. I mean, it's just laughable. It does not make sense. And that is exactly why the Premier here in Queensland needs to start making some common sense decisions. Otherwise, the livelihoods and quite frankly, the life of so many people are at real risk. People are absolutely hurting, and the world keeps going on. We've had a terrible mine incident yesterday here in Queensland. 5 people intensive care because of a terrible tragedy that happened in Moranbah mines yesterday. That's getting close to the same amount of people that are in hospital for coronavirus. I mean, we need to start remembering that there is a huge cohort of people around Australia that are just needing a bit of certainty and confidence about how they can move forward with their lives.